You know, when I think of the Splatoon franchise, I imagine it as a child. A sweet, naive child that wanders around the house and touches stuff like a stove that you explicitly said was on, but they just have to touch it anyway because they just need to get their grubby little hands on everything that they see. And what was I talking about? Oh yeah, when I think about the Splatoon franchise, I imagine it as a child. A sweet child that might occasionally do some very annoying things, but still always finds a way to put a smile on your face despite all of it. Splatoon is a franchise that went from a peculiar looking one-off game on a failing console to one of Nintendo's biggest franchises ever. We're at the point now with Switch 2 on the horizon where one of the most anticipated games is the next installment in the Splatoon franchise, all the while stumbling about and figuring out just how to be the best shooter it can possibly be. So let's talk a little bit about Splatoon's history, starting from the beginning. Splatoon 1 was definitely a pleasant surprise back in 2015. I first heard about the game through commercials I saw on cable TV. I don't know if it was just me or if it was the horrible marketing at the time. Who am I kidding? It was the horrible marketing at the time. But I barely knew just what Splatoon was about. When I saw those commercials, I thought it was just a tacky single-player game about randomly painting stuff like Crayola Scooter Pooplers is. My mom bought me a Wii U just that past Christmas too, but I had no interest whatsoever in picking up Splatoon. At least, not at first. My first actual introduction to Splatoon, beyond was through Zach Scott Games. Zach had previously introduced and hooked me on the Pokemon series with his Pokemon X and Y Let's Play, so I wanted to see if he could do the same with Splatoon. I watched a few parts of his Let's Play and god dang it, that elephant enthusiast worked his magic on me again. I actually began to understand what Splatoon was, a fun third-person shooter with incredibly innovative movement mechanics. After watching that Let's Play and then Splatoon Direct, I ended up copying the game a couple weeks after its release. Now I gotta say, it's laughable looking back at Splatoon 1's content at launch considering what we have now. Are you a fan of brushes, sloshers, splatlings, dualies, brellas, stringers, or splatanas? Well, none of those weapons existed at the start of Splatoon 1. The only weapon classes you had were shooters, blasters, rollers, and chargers. You had nothing else. Is your favorite map Flounder Heights, Mahi Mahi Resort, or Museum del Foncino? Well, none of those existed at the start of Splatoon 1 either. You had 5 maps to play on at the start of Splatoon 1. One map would go on to be remodeled, 2 of these maps would go on to be considered some of the worst in the series, and one of them was literally shadow banned in 2 of the 3 ranked modes. Do you like playing Tower Control, Rainmaker, Clan Blitz, Private Battles, League Battles, Salmon Run, Challenges, or Table Turf? Well, none of those modes existed at the start of Splatoon 1. All you had was Turf War and Square Turf War. Early Splatoon 1 was very funny to watch. To give you an idea of what good gameplay looked like back then, watch one of those old Game Explain videos where Andre plays with the Splattershot Jr. After a couple months though, channels like Nintendo, Squid Kids, and that SRB2 dude gained more popularity and people really started to learn more about the game. Strategy started to form, meta started to be made, and competitive teams started to be created. It's a good thing that PBs and squad battles were added to the game during that same time frame. Heck, if your team was really confident, you could do a tri-squad where just 3 of you would enter a queue and fight a 4-man team. I love how instead of just having someone random fill that last spot like an Anarchy Open, they just said, screw it, you can take them. Your respawn times are decreased, you'll be fine. Now to anyone who was a competitive player way back then, let me know how you guys did it, because back in Splatoon 1, commentators didn't have the ability to spectate games. I do this research myself, but I feel like it'll be funnier if you all rant to me in the comments. I want to know just how many obstacles y'all had to clear to make that happen back then. As the months went on, Splatoon 1 began to fill out. We got 11 more maps to play on, second and even a couple third kits for the weapons, a bunch of new gear including some gear modeled off the Squid Girl manga, Tower Control and Rainmaker were added to ranked, and we got 16 different Splatfests. I've said in past videos that I feel like Splatoon 1 had the best Splatfest. Cats vs Dogs, Art vs Science, Burgers vs Pizza, Past vs not that one, Past vs Future, they were all awesome. One thing that got more people's eyes on Splatoon were the collab Splatfests that they did. Some of these were just involving other Nintendo games like Pokemon or Miitomo, but some involved entirely different industries. In Japan, they had Splatfest collabs with various food brands, and one of these Splatfests, Lemon Tea vs Milk Tea, was the first time that we ever got to see white ink in a Splatoon game. Meanwhile, in the West, we had Splatfest collabs with TV shows like Transformers and SpongeBob SquarePants. I'm still waiting for SpongeBob vs Patrick vs Squidward in Splatoon 3, Nintendo. Summer nights are right around the corner. You may have to swap the blue and yellow color since there's no way that Fry will be on Team Squidward, but that shouldn't be hard to do. Splatoon 1 unfortunately didn't get nominated for Game of the Year or anything, but there were plenty of people saying that Splatoon 1 was their favorite game of 2015. It was a game that really stuck with people and became the 6th best-selling game on the Wii U. About a third of all Wii U owners were Splatoon 1 owners, so with Splatoon being such a success given the circumstances, the logical next step was to create a sequel. Only 3 months after Splatoon 1's final Splatfest and the end of its update cycle, we got our first glimpse of Splatoon 2. We saw a couple of competitive teams coming up with in-game strategies and then walking out to a massive stadium filled with fans. God, just imagine if Splatoon 4 was announced 3 months after Splatoon 3's Grand Festival. There will be public executions of Splatoon's dev team. The game was later highlighted in the Nintendo Switch presentation and released 4 months after the Switch itself. This lowly franchise that just started 2 years ago already had 2 entries in it, and the second one was kicking off Nintendo's comeback with the Switch alongside Breath of the Wild and Super Mario Odyssey. Of all the Splatoon games, Splatoon 2 is the one that I have the most attachment to. Mentally, emotionally, financially, I truly feel connected to this game. Now, when Splatoon 2 first launched, I was still a teenager, which means I got the game whenever my mom wanted to get me the game. I didn't have a car that I could take to GameStop and pay for the game myself. I had to wait till she got off work and watch everyone play Splatoon 2 online. That's one of the few things I will always prefer about adulthood over childhood. I can buy games whenever I want now, as long as I'm not broke. You know, now would be a great time to subscribe to the channel, or even become a member for only $5 a month. You get access to a bunch of emotes, badges, behind the scenes videos, and more. But once I did get my hands on Splatoon 2, I was in for a wild ride. Back then there were 8 maps in the game, a whole new co-op mode with Salmon Run, Stingray was a joke compared to the menace it was at the end of the game, and this weapon was a tyrant. As someone who used the splatter shots to death in Splatoon 1, I just felt obsolete when I started using them in Splatoon 2. The Tri-Slashers felt like it just outclassed me in every way. It dealt more damage, killed faster, and felt like it had more range than I did. I'm a shooter, man. I'm not supposed to be oppressed. For the rest of 2017, we got a steady flow of new maps, new weapons, and new Splatfests. Fun fact, I didn't win a single Splatfest this year, except for the test fire, if you count that. The first Splatfest I won was Action vs. Comedy in 2018. This was the worst losing streak I ever had in a Splatoon game up to this point. Little did I know it would only get worse when Splatoon 3 came out. 2018 was one of the best years for the Splatoon franchise. We got the Octo expansion, the Kensa collection, the introduction of seasonal Splatfest, and Inklings in Smash. The Octo expansion was the first attempt at paid DLC in the Splatoon franchise. It was a single-player campaign with 80 different levels where you navigate the deep sea metro. Now, up to this point, the single-player campaigns were alright, but this one was just built different. The levels are more difficult than anything else we previously experienced in the series. People above the age of 5 were getting game overs in some of these levels. These levels are still probably the most recognized levels in Splatoon history for their difficulty and their originality. In the previous single player modes, every level was just about making it to the Zapfish in one piece. In the Octo expansion though, you might be instructed to not take damage, pop a set amount of balloons before they fly out of your weapon's reach, and guide the balls of Satan to a designated location without making them fall off the map. There were different objectives and challenges that made each level stand out in the player's mind. Like if you had played through the Octo expansion and I asked you about Girl Power Station or Move It Station, you would instantly know what I was talking about without me providing any further details. And you'd probably break out in a cold sweat too. We also got to learn more about Off the Hook. When they were first introduced, they looked cool, but a lot of people felt bitter that they were replacing the Squid Sisters on the news. People accepted them with time, but even when they did, they never quite hit the level that Callie and Marie were at. It didn't help that they weren't involved in the base story mode either. However, when the Octo expansion came out, we got to interact with and learn more about them. We learned that Marina was a high-ranking, incredibly intelligent engineer for the Octarian army, and that Pearl could destroy buildings with her throat. The whole campaign was awesome and brought a ton of people to Splatoon 2. The momentum only increased with all the content pushing this game, both inside and outside of the series. Internally, we got third kits with the Kensa collection and Sheldon's picks, the Booyah Bomb and Ultra Stamp specials for some of those kits, multiplayer battles added to Splatfest, and the occasional 48-hour Splatfest that would revamp the look of the title screen, square, idols, and opening scene in Turf Wars. Externally, there were Splatoon features in games like Smash and Tetris, and also a whole manga about Splatoon team participating in Turf War Cups and ranked battles. Now, all that we're missing is a Splatoon anime. Don't think I don't know what you guys were doing with that Virgin 4 trailer. I know what you are! As a byproduct of Splatoon 2's growth and popularity, some new creators like yours truly came onto the scene. As some of you know, back then I made videos comparing Splatoon 2 to Splatoon 1 and vice versa. And boy did I do it in the most monotone way possible, like drink some coffee or something, brother. Why did y'all watch this? And then in 2019, we were blessed with Final Fest, the Splatfest to end all Splatfests. This Splatfest asked the most cryptic question yet. Do you want a world of chaos or a world of order? This Splatfest went on for 72 hours, the odds of getting a 100x battle were increased, and Team Order got absolutely demolished. I thought Team Order would have at least won popularity or something, man, but no, we didn't get anything. Like with all seasonal Splatfests, Angopolis Square was completely redecorated. On one side you had pointed poles with tattered Chaos banners, and on the other you had rounded poles with shiny Order banners. Pro and Marina were also wearing the outfits that they had wore during the reveal trailer of this Splatfest. The Squid Sisters Splatfest battle song from Splatoon 1 made a return, and so did all of the Shifty Stations. Shifty Stations were Splatoon 2 maps that were made specifically for Splatfest that usually borrowed a wacky gimmick from the single player. By the time of Final Fest, there were 23 unique Shifty Stations that ranged from a map that would kill anyone who touched a gusher that wasn't spewing their ink, to a map where you could warp straight to the enemy base using the grappling so long as you had the right special. In addition to all these returning Shifty Stations, there was one more Shifty Station that took place at the site of the Octo expansion finale, where Pearl and her Kamehameha Killer Whale came down at the last minute. After Team Chaos won, that was officially the end of Splatoon 2's update cycle. There'd be no more modes, no more maps, and no more weapons. At this point, a lot of people expected Splatoon 2 to coast into the sunset while we waited for Splatoon 3. And then this happened. COVID had locked people in their homes with nothing better to do but play video games. In response to this, Nintendo brought back Splatfest in Splatoon 2, with 3 being repeat Splatfests and 1 being an entirely new one to celebrate Mario's 35th anniversary. I honestly didn't expect much from this period, just something to hold me over in Splatoon 2 for a couple months, and oh my goodness! This was the best period that I ever had on YouTube. It really showed me just how massive and active this community is when we just have something to do. Between those Splatfests and the recent hype the Splatoon community generated around Ninjala, remember Ninjala? I certainly do. It felt like the Splatoon community was back to how it was when the Octo expansion released. Among other games like Ninjala, Animal Crossing, Fall Guys, and Among Us, Splatoon 2 and all of you lovely peeps definitely helped keep me sane when I had nothing else to do. And I want to hope that I return the favor at least a little bit to all of you. As exhilarating as that growth period was, I do not want to go back to the COVID era. Every time I even see the Zoom icon, I get flashbacks to the horrors of online learning. And exactly 1 month after the Mushroom vs. Star Splatfest, there was the February 2021 Nintendo Direct, which had this as its final announcement. Splatoon 3. It's crazy because it was literally 1 month. Like, that direct started to the minute, like 1 month after Mushroom vs. Star ended. This franchise, which at the time was only 6 years old, was not only getting its 3rd installment, but was the one last thing of a Nintendo Direct. This spot is usually saved for system sellers like Smash, masterpieces like Zelda, and games that were forgotten about for 7 years like Metroid Prime Beyond. But here Splatoon was, occupying that last spot. As you could probably expect, we went a little crazy over this game. After playing Splatoon 2 for 4 years now, people were ready to move on to the next installment of the franchise. If they had to play on Gobi Arena or Shell Endolphin Institute one more time, they would have blown their heads off. Every time Splatoon 3 was shown up until its release, people screamed, which admittedly got to be kind of ridiculous sometimes. Like, you know the snippets of footage that was shown in the Switch OLED trailer, right? People even made videos talking about those. Guys, it was 8 seconds of footage. Calm down. After being teased with Splatoon 3 trailers for over a year, the game was finally released in September 2022. People threw their copies of Splatoon 2 in the trash and raced to pick up their copies of Splatoon 3. Splatoon 3 released with 12 maps, all the base weapons from Splatoon 2, plus a couple of new ones, and 15 specials. The specials were the thing I was most excited to try out in Splatoon 3. Up to that point, my favorite specials were the Inkzooka and the Ink Strike, so I really wanted to see how the Trizooka and Triple Ink Strike would be. Over time, even more specials would be added. Some of them were new, some of them were brought back from Splatoon 2, and some of them were brought back from Splatoon 1. At first, I was very nervous about Kraken returning in Splatoon 3, but it ended up not being that bad. I've always had a fear of invincibility specials ever since Splatoon 1. Nothing was worse than pulling off a flank successfully, and right when you're about to go for the kill, they Kraken or Bubbler just before you can do so. It'd be like if you were fighting Satoru Gojo. You can't hit him while he's just killing you! But it takes time for you to morph into a Kraken now, just like it takes time to set up a Splash Wall or a Big Bubbler, so we good. Now, one thing that made Splatoon 3 different from Splatoon 1 and 2 was that Splatoon 3's update cycle is broken up into seasons. At the start of each season, we would get a batch of new weapons, gear, cards, maps, and events. Once per season, there would be a salmon run event where one of the multiplayer stages would get overrun by salmons, and it was our job to fend them off. I'm glad that in universe, the Inklings and Octolings are protective of every map, because if we were in that position, there'd only be like 2 of them things left. On the very first big run where Wahoo World got overrun, you had some people being like, oh honey, the salmonids can keep Wahoo World, just leaving Wahoo out to dry, or I guess soak in this case. Y'all are miserable, you know that? I have new players turn on the game and just see turf war on nothing. The big runs were very fun to participate in. There's a good chunk of people out there who actually prefer big runs to Splatfest. It's easy to find yourself playing big run for several hours trying to get the highest egg count possible with some friends and getting mauled by one of the 3 King Salmonids. These King Salmonids were the best addition to Salmon Run 2. Each one has a monstrous amount of HP with their own unique quirks, and it's up to you to figure out how to take them down in 100 seconds. Then if you do, you are given the most euphoric prize in gaming. This and extra work, which are basically just time trial Salmon Run edition, made Salmon Run significantly more fun than it was in Splatoon 2. In February 2024, the Side Order DLC was released. When Side Order was first revealed in the February 2023 Nintendo Direct, we got a 40-second trailer of Agent 8 standing in the middle of an abandoned Inkopolis square with various images of concept art flashing on screen. Then we didn't see it again until September. Side Order was portrayed to be this eerie alternate reality where the right team, Team Order, won the final Splatfest. When it was released, thousands of players went into the Spire of Order to see just what this DLC was all about. Side Order was a roguelike campaign where you attempt to clear the 30th floor spire in order to rescue Marina. Before entering each floor, you collect a color chip which enhances your abilities. If you collect enough of the right ones, you can absolutely break this campaign. Side Order was pretty fun. It breathed more life into the game for a few weeks due to all the different ways you can mix and mesh color chips and bully Smallest. And most importantly, it brought Off the Hook and Inkopolis Square into Splatoon 3. If having 2 hubs for Splatfest wasn't enough for you, then how about a 3rd one? And speaking of Splatfest, Splatoon 3 Splatfest still gave us what was probably the single best 72 hours in the franchise's history, the Grand Festival. Better than Callie vs. Marie, better than the Splatocalypse, this was the Splatfest to rule them all. What's that? You like the renovations of past Splatfest? Well, how about a whole entire hub that you can go to? It seems about as large as Splatsville. Oh, you liked an idol group performing their hit song or even a remix of their song on stage? How about having all 3 idol groups perform remix versions of all of their songs and an entirely new song on the last day? Huh? You like seeing the NPCs dancing and partying? Well, how about having 3 different stages filled with dozens of jellyfish that you can party with without a single frame drop on your console? When you explore the marveled as the Grand Festival grounds, it really makes you think. How are these the same people who made Mincemeat Metalworks? The Grand Festival was the culmination of everything that the Splatoon series was up until that point. There was even more connection to this venue considering the fact that we had to fight for this place. The week before, the final big run took place and it was located here. We had to fend off the Salmonids one last time so we could conduct the Grand Festival. The threat was so serious that Mr. Grizz gave us an extra reward if we got 700 million eggs. Something that we did with the greatest of ease, by the way. So that added even more of an impact behind the venue. And this is all excluding the most popular part about Splatfest, the battles. Even as someone who was on the most popular team, the mirror matches weren't overbearing. I had a few, but I also had plenty of matches against Team Past and Team Future. For this Splatfest, the odds of getting a 10x were increased. The thought at first was, 10x battles? That's it? But doing that created a domino effect. Having more 10x battles means that there will be more 10x wins, which means more festival shells, which means more 100x and 333x battles. Over the course of the 3-day Splatfest, more and more battle songs were made available for us to listen to while we played. On the second day, we had songs like Shark Bytes and Smeared Canvas enter the queue. But on the final day, this melody started playing. All 3 groups sang together, sounding almost like they were fighting over the mic. And instead of sounding like a mess, it sounded amazing. I was already taken aback by the sun setting and the idols performing 3 wishes on the giant clam stage, so this was just the cherry on top. That last day was unforgettable. And then it was all over. The sun was rising, the idols were performing their closing songs, and Team Past won the Splatfest. You couldn't siphon off any points from them, Team Future? Imagine being in last place with 0 points! If people were crying before, they certainly were now. I don't know what it is about Maritime Memory, but that song specifically is always the one that gets me. Into the Light and Daybreaker Anthem are great too, don't get me wrong. But Maritime Memory, ever since the Splatoon 1 Splatfest splashback, has a special way of touching my spirit. Probably because it's the song that I've been hearing the longest and best contextualizes just how long this journey has been now. This song first played during the credits of Splatoon 1 story mode, something that some of you probably beat the day the game came out. 10 years ago. When I first got Splatoon 1 about 10 years ago, I was a 12-year-old middle schooler who only got a Wii U for Christmas because I just really wanted to play Smash 4. And since then, I graduated middle school, graduated high school, transferred from a community college to a university, and I'm just a couple years now from getting an engineering degree. I've also met countless people through YouTube, Discord, heck Miiverse, because I used to post Splatoon messages and talk with people I played with there. Splatoon shielded me from needing to work during the pandemic and was even able to help me completely pay for my community college classes, numerous other games to stream, another monitor to stream with, and a separate laptop that I'm typing these words on so I wouldn't be locked up in my room all day working. Even right now, it has allowed me to worm into your notification box, your subscription feed, your homepage, your search results, or your up next section, and ramble to you for like 20 minutes now. A lot of people may think it's weird to celebrate a game's birthday. I mean, it's just a game, right? But I don't think they understand that for many, it isn't just gaming, it's life-changing. Alright, this video's getting long, so I'm going to stop it here. Whether you've been with Splatoon for 10 years or 10 days, let me know how Splatoon has affected your life. And if you want to check out more content that's a bit shorter, where I talk about all 3 games, check out this video right here. I'll see you all next time.